What if I told you that it isn't always about size, but when talking about naval warfare, it's about power, stealth, and sometimes complete madness? Buckle up, grab your life jacket, and let's dive into the world's wildest military vessels. If Batman had a warship, it would be the USS Enterprise. This super-strong guided missile destroyer looks like a floating sci-fi fortress, equipped with an angular radar-evading design and an electric propulsion system. It was built to dominate the seas while barely showing up on radar, which is great unless you're trying to impress your enemies. For all its state-of-the-art design, early computer glitches had it once requiring a tow into the harbor, not necessarily the arrival you'd hope for on a $4 billion warship. But now that it's fixed, it's able to unleash a barrage of missiles while being all but undetectable. If there were ninjas in the sea, they'd be Seawolf-class submarines. They're nuclear-powered attack subs designed and outfitted for the element of surprise. You'd not even realize something was following you until it was too late. The United States Navy created the Seawolves as ultra-stealth, under-the-sea killer machines of Cold War angst in the early days of nuclear weapons and supersonic bombers. With its 35-knot speed submerged and piercing torpedoes, the Seawolf is no joke. Too bad, or maybe luckily, they only made 3 of them. Supposedly, the Pentagon figured that stealth sharks are just a tad too expensive at $3 billion a pop. Not as expensive as the USS Enterprise, but still quite a lot of money given the fact it's taxpayers. Now let's take a look at the world's deadliest submarine ever designed. This nuclear doomsday factory on wheels can launch 24 Trident II missile launchers, and each has the ability to annihilate a city. These boomers disappear for months on end, haunting the ocean depths as a silent nuclear threat. Imagine a football field-sized submarine that could annihilate civilization just floating somewhere under the sea at all times. It's so critical to national defense that these subs never fired a missile in combat, because naturally, if they ever did, we'd probably have bigger problems than just the war. Makes you realize why the US holds the title of World Police, doesn't it? Imagine something like a floating city, equipped with fighter jets, and you've got the Nimitz-class aircraft carrier. These 1,092-foot-long giants carry over 5,000 personnel and 90 aircraft, making them the biggest and baddest things on the ocean. We have to agree that the seas effectively belong to the US Navy thanks to these leviathans. With nuclear reactors, one Nimitz can operate for 20 years before needing a refill. Yup, you heard that right. Your car runs on gas for 400 miles before needing a tank up, while this monstrosity lasts for decades. And it's also one of the safest places in a fight to be, unless you are the guy who forgets to tie down his F-18. Half warship, half floating marine base, the Wasp class is designed to deliver a battalion-sized contingent of troops anywhere on the planet. It carries Harrier jets, helicopters, and hovercraft, so it can be thought of as the Swiss Army craft of warships. Its well-deck floods, allowing landing crafts to be like an action movie stunt, and its flight deck catapults fighter jets and helicopters out in the skies. Essentially, if the US Marines ever want to crash a beach party, this is how they should do it. By using these Wasp-class ships. The Wasp-class isn't named after the bug, but was actually named after a WW-2 aircraft carrier, although in all honesty, it does sort of sting hard. The Skjold class is basically a missile speedboat-made warship, and we love it. The Norwegian-designed corvette travels on an air cushion system, permitting it to glide over the water like a hydroplane, making it one of the fastest warships to ever have existed, achieving 60+ knots, around 70 miles per hour. Armed with naval strike missiles, this lightweight boat packs a punch akin to a heavier class. The best part about it, due to its sheer speed and agility, it's faster than many torpedoes, basically a ship that could dodge bullets in the Matrix. And now let's take a look at another type of corvette, this time a Russian-made one. If the Cold War had a pocket battleship, it would be the Tarantul-class corvette. Tiny, high-speed warships of the Soviet era with anti-ship missiles spilling out of every porthole. Corgi-sized but Rottweiler-tempered, these ships were built to take on much bigger enemies with their supersonic missile arsenal. Even today, they're still in service around the world, proving that size doesn't matter when you're carrying enough firepower to sink a destroyer. The next one on the list sounds like it came straight out of science fiction, and in part, it has. The United States Navy conducted an experiment known as the Ghost Fleet Overlord Project using totally autonomous warships, which means that no people were required on board. These ships were controlled by computers alone and were used and still are used to patrol, spy, and even launch attacks on their own. This is the start of Skynet if it ever becomes a thing. On the upside, the end of sailors' seasickness. On the downside, let's just hope the robots don't rebel. Let's check out another robot warship, this one intended to track subs. The Sea Hunter is an autonomous drone ship that can track enemy subs around the clock for months on end without rest, equipped with sonar and high-tech sensors. It has no humans on board whatsoever, so no complaints about the food in the cafeteria. It operates through AI and satellite controls, making it the world's first completely autonomous anti-submarine vessel. If this thing ever does become self-aware, it's going to be awesome at hide-and-seek. With the evolution of AI, it was just about time before a ship like this came into the game. DARPA's Manta Ray is more than just a funky nickname. It's a stealthy, long-duration underwater drone designed for deep-sea combat missions. If James Bond needed a sub, this would be the one. This unmanned undersea vehicle, UUV, can spend months underwater gathering intel or carrying payloads in silence. The idea is to have an army of autonomous underwater spies that can sneak into places where no human sub can. If we ever discover that aliens exist in the deep sea, this thing will most likely detect them first, and hopefully they don't steal it from us. And now, let's take a look at an extra-large submarine, the Boeing's Orca. This silent giant of the seas is an extra-large unmanned underwater vehicle, XLUUV, so basically a submarine without anybody on board. If the Seawolf is a ninja, then this thing is a ghost that glides in the ocean depths without a crew to give it hair, grub, or pour coffee. Designed for covert operations, the Orca can slip into enemy territory undetected, gather intelligence, and even deposit payloads and depart without anyone noticing it was ever there. It's every cartoon's evil genius's fantasy gadget for sure. The fun part is that they even call it Orca. The real killer whales make a whole lot more noise than this thing does. It is time to come back up for some air, and that's why the Seagull is the next warship we are about to introduce. This could be mistaken as a nagging beach bird, but it is actually an autonomous warship designed to chase after submarines and mines. It's tiny, it's quick, and it's sneaky, unlike the bulk of naval drones. The Seagull is a robotic jet ski, but instead of taking tourists out, it's cruising the sea like a drug-sniffing dog. And because it's unmanned, if it finds a sea mine, it can blow it up without putting anyone in danger. If the Navy ever created a Roomba of the ocean, this would be it, only it doesn't vacuum up crumbs, it just finds submarines. What is your opinion about most military equipment becoming unmanned? Let us know in the comments below. If the Navy SEALs did have a Batmobile of the ocean, this would be it. The SOC-R is an attack boat special operations vehicle that's faster than your friend getting out of the dinner bill. Armed with a few heavy machine guns, it can race through tight spots, duck enemy fire, and drop troops right into combat. It was designed for speed and tight turns. The SOC-R's V-shaped belly allows the boat to skate along the surface with relatively little drag on the hull. There is no hanging rudder or propeller blades to snag on submerged roots and rocks. Picture a high-speed chase on a jungle river, but with additional explosions and a lot more firepower. If Indiana Jones would take place today, this is probably the boat he would use for his river escapades. Next one on is the Mark V SOC, the preferred speedboat of the Navy SEALs, a boat designed to go in, get out, and leave destruction behind. It's fast enough that it likely could outrun some sports cars, and it can carry 16 Special Forces operators ready to strike a beachhead or board an enemy vessel. Think of it as a Ferrari with rocket launchers, except instead of a racetrack, it tears through enemy waters. The bad guys probably hear it coming and think, nope, we're out. Do you know of any operations that use these boats? Which ones? The Barracuda SV-11 is what you get when you pose the question, what if we made a speedboat that disappears? It's a stealth insertion boat designed to drop special forces into enemies' territory without anyone being aware of it. It has the ability to operate completely underwater, so the enemy doesn't even realize it's approaching. By the time they realize they've been invaded, it's already too late. In short, if the Navy ever had to have an invisible boat, this would be its first choice. Not as cool as the Cloak of Invisibility, but pretty cool anyways. Here we are, halfway through some of the most shocking, jaw-dropping military ships the world has ever known. Whether it's a stealth submarine that camouflages itself in the depths, a tank that floats, or a robot warship out of Terminator, one thing's for sure, military technology never ceases to amaze. But now it's your turn. Which one of these ships blew your mind the most? Would you want to serve on a high-speed attack ship, a sneaky submarine, or be in command of a giant aircraft carrier? Let us know in the comments, and if you're enjoying military tech, future warships, and wacky engineering, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell, because we're just starting. Yes, you are seeing that correctly. That is literally a tank on the water. This monstrous design is the Indonesian Antasena, and it is what happens when someone is like, what if we put a tank turret on a boat, and then actually does that. This waterborne armored vehicle has a 30mm cannon, so it's one of the very few boats that can engage in a fight with actual tanks. Nowadays at least, because if old pirate movies taught us anything, it's that they had cannons on board. The Antasena was designed for riverine and swamp warfare, so it's basically a floating fortress. The most frightening thing in the world? A tank. A tank that can swim. Jack Sparrow definitely has some competition for the Black Pearl, don't you think? The SSC is basically a steroid-fueled hovercraft of the 21st century. It's designed to drop tanks, soldiers, and supplies right onto a beach, with no port necessary. It can travel on water and land, so it has the ability to transport a squadron of marines, tanks, or pizza. Not that last one. Should the military ever need to dash off a beach sometime in the future, this hovercraft will get them there in style. Just don't try to race it. It'll float, but it's not exactly fast. Talking about speed, this is the Chaser 980, the result of what happens when the military desires a vessel that performs like a fighter aircraft. It's an interceptor of high performance, created to pursue smugglers, pirates, or any other individual who believes they can escape it. Equipped with machine guns and high-speed maneuverability, this is the nautical equivalent of a police vehicle, except that it has the capability to return fire. Not as cool as the SSC, but absolutely faster than it. And since we are on the topic of returning fire, this boat was literally named the Destroyer. This is Japan's Kongo-class destroyer, an Aegis-equipped warship that was designed to track and shoot down ballistic missiles. I don't know why everyone is stocking up on missile trackers, but something, somewhere, must be cooking. What do you guys think? If enemy missiles fly toward Japan, these ships are the first and last line of defense. But then, on the other hand, Japan is justified for owning such ships. If my neighbor had a ship called the Destroyer, I would worry too. It doesn't come as a surprise that China has its own destroyer, named Type 005. This is one of the largest and most advanced destroyers in the world. Again, China saw something and made it bigger and badder. Some experts even call it a mini battleship, making its reputation even scarier. This big boy is equipped with long-range missiles, stealth technology, and anti-air defenses, making even the USA reconsider their own destroyer. The 005 is so big that it could technically qualify as a cruiser, but calling it that would just make the Pentagon nervous. When Britain decided it needed a nuclear submarine, they didn't hesitate. The HMS Dreadnought S-101 was the Royal Navy's first nuclear submarine, and it transformed Britain's naval capabilities and reputation. With atomic power, it could stay underwater for months, waiting patiently beneath the waves, like a silent stalker poised to strike at the right moment. It was so far ahead when it was released that it actually made diesel-electric subs anachronisms, looking like steam power. It was called the Underwater Spitfire by the British press, but we can agree that it was more like a creeping shadow of underwater doom. And now let's jump back in modern times with this Russian-made submarine. We are talking about the Bore-class sub, a mix of a nuclear reactor, a field of steel as large as a football field, and a few ballistic missiles enough to destroy a continent and turn it into dust. It is the backbone of Russia's strategic nuclear deterrent, which is to say if everything else goes wrong, this submarine will send regrets in the form of missiles. They carry Bulava ballistic missiles, which have sufficient range to strike on the opposite side of the globe. The only thing more frightening than seeing one of these is not seeing one, because that means it's in the depths, waiting. It's time for us to take another deep breath in on the surface again, this time with the Littoral Combat Ship. Designed to be speedy, modular, and versatile, the Littoral Combat Ship, LCS, was meant to dominate shallow coastal seas. It was designed to be a modern warship that would swap out weapon systems like changing a video game loadout. However, initial LCS designs had such a multitude of mechanical issues that sailors probably spent more time fixing them than they were actually employed in battle. With some extensive overhauling, the LCS is currently a speedy warship well suited for special ops, reconnaissance, and patrol tasks. It's not really the Navy's prized child, but hey, at least it's not going down. Let's say it's the middle child of the Navy ships. The next one on the list is the Virginia class, which is not just a submarine, it's a stealthy underwater ninja with the latest in submarine warfare technology. This attack submarine for the US Navy is so quiet that it's been described as a hole in the water because it essentially disappears from sonar arrays. With its Tomahawk missiles, torpedoes, and advanced spying gear, the Virginia-class can sneak, shoot, and be gone before you ever even saw it. It's the ultimate pairing of brains and brawns, and it makes it one of the deadliest subs in the world. And if you ever hear no one knows where the Virginia-class is, that's the plan. Almost as deadly as foot-long Subway sandwiches for lunch, because those will for sure kill your health quicker. The Kirov-class battlecruiser is really Russia's answer to what if we built a battleship in the modern era. The nuclear-powered vessel is so massive that destroyers look like toy boats. With P-700 Granite missiles, powerful anti-air defense, and a hull that would probably survive a torpedo hit, the Kirov-class is among the world's most heavily armed surface warships. Nicknamed the battlecruiser from hell, they were intended to scare NATO off the face of the earth. And really, if you did catch a glimpse of one coming your way, you might not want to make any sudden moves. And of course, if Russia has a what-if battleship, America has to have one too. And that is when the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, the American Navy's very own Swiss Army knife, was built. It can do anything, from anti-air, anti-sub to anti-surface warfare. You name it, and this destroyer can do it. With its Aegis combat system, it can track and destroy in-flight missiles, making it one of the finest defenses for an enemy's aerial attack. It's also armed with Tomahawk cruise missiles, so if the Navy ever needs to send an enemy a strongly worded letter, this ship can do so at Mach 0.8. It's named after WW2 Admiral Arleigh Burke, who would have probably loved the firepower on this behemoth. Have you ever heard of Admiral Burke? What do you know about him? Tell us in the comments below. But there cannot be only two parties present, can there? Great Britain wanted to join in so badly that they made the Queen Elizabeth-class aircraft carrier. This is Britain's pride and joy, and for good reason. These carriers are the biggest warships ever built for the Royal Navy, and they carry the latest F-35 stealth fighters. Unlike the massive US carriers, these use a ski jump ramp to launch planes into the air, because why have an ordinary flight deck when you can have a little extra flair? Manned by a crew of 1,600, with a flight deck the length of 3 football fields, and enough firepower to make any adversary reconsider their life choices, these carriers put the UK back on the map as a naval power to be taken seriously. Forget stealth and firepower, the Trieste was all depth. Built in the 1950s, this bathyscaphe legend was basically a steel sphere taped to a balloon filled with gas, designed to descend deeper than any other crewed sub in history. In 1960, it descended a bonkers 35,797 feet, 10,911 meters to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, where the pressure was so outrageous it could crush a nuclear submarine like an aluminium soda can. The team reported seeing strange deep-sea creatures, proof that even deep down, there is life, and maybe even aliens. This would be James Cameron's military submarine if he had one. The Independence-class LCS looks like it came from the future, with a sleek trimaran design that allows it to be super fast and agile in shallow water. It was conceived to patrol coastlines, hunt submarines, and insert special operations teams. This ship is so lightweight that it can reach 50 knots, 58 miles per hour, essentially Formula 1 speeds for warships. However, early on, it was so beset by corrosion issues that people started joking that it was more rust-proof than battle-proof. Luckily, after some revisions, it's now one of the most advanced coastal warships on the planet. Talking about a rusty start. And now for the grand finale, the one and only USS Enterprise. The USS Enterprise, CVN-65, was not only the first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, but also the longest warship ever built, at a length of 1,123 feet. The ship was so famous that even Star Trek titled its spaceship the Enterprise. With its 8 nuclear reactors, it never needed to refuel for over 25 years, meaning it could sail for years after most ships would have been retired. During its life, it saw duty in nearly every important US military operation, from the Cold War to the Gulf War. It was finally retired in 2017, but come on, this legendary carrier will never truly be forgotten. What do you guys think?